Good afternoon, good morning and good evening. I'm Emma Osmondson. I have the privilege to be the YMCA President for YMCA Europe. And may I extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you today. Now, every minute, 25 people are forced to leave their homes and countries in order to survive. Half of them are minors and young people. War, socio-political reasons, poverty, environmental and demographic factors are some of the reasons for this phenomenon. Today, the situation for refugees, migrants, and the internally displaced persons has been made even more dramatic due to the impact of COVID-19. Now, this conference today will highlight the important role of the YMCA in addressing one of the major social challenges in contemporary times. Now, when I became president of YMCA Europe only last November, I received a very special gift from Jim Thompson, who now lives in Scotland, but was formerly a staff member at the World Alliance. Jim sent me a dossier he'd written on the work of YMCA national movements and the World Alliance of YMCAs with refugees and rehabilitation, covering 50 years from 1945 to 1995. His dossier was documenting the YMCA and YWCA men and women who had given the most extraordinary and sacrificial services to refugees, migrants, and displaced people. And it's often been questioned why the YMCA should have entered the realms of rendering aid to what has been termed the wandering and the lost. Now, part of the answer of why the why lies in the historical juxtaposition of the YMCA and the International Red Cross. In 1859, Henry Dunant, a member of the Geneva YMCA, was so affected by what he saw on the battlefield of Solferino that he engaged the support of his local YMCA in the production of a booklet, a memory of Solferino, which in turn led to the formation of the International and Permanent Committee for the Relief of the Sick and Wounded in the Armed Forces. This then led to the founding of the International Red Cross and the Geneva Convention. No other organisation other than the Red Cross paid more visits and distributed more necessities in prisoner of war camps across the world, both during world wars than did the World Alliance of YMCAs, based as it was in neutral Geneva. Now, a second factor is the configuration of the YMCAs. As it spread across the world, the structure of its local associations, voluntary linked to national councils, which in turn were voluntarily linked to a world and a regional office development. This was quite pioneering at quite a unique time of age. Now, the third and probably most indefinable factor has been the YMCA's willingness to go to the aid of a neighbour, be it mass displacement after World War II, the Vietnam War, hostility in Uganda, famine in Ethiopia, or more recent unrest in Ukraine, in Syria, and most recently in Nagorno-Karabakh. Whether it is fleeing from home because of war, natural disaster, or for economic reasons, YMCA has, during its 170 years of existence, always taken care of those who wanted to start a new future or who needed support. And in 2016, with the Syrian war as a catalyst, YMCA Europe organised its first conference about YMCA work for refugees and migrants in Europe. This was followed in 2018 with YMCA Europe establishing a working group to coordinate and stimulate the refugee work of YMCAs across Europe. The working group has now been established a database of YMCA refugee projects in Europe, which at the moment includes 56 projects in 15 different countries. but there are more. Today, in 2021, our conference will focus on the integration of refugees and migrants in the receiving societies. This conference is intended to be a platform to exchange experiences between practitioners, sharing ideas, and it is hoped gaining inspiration for new projects. In the first session today, we have three excellent speakers. Vice President Shanaz from European Commission, Director General Vitorino from the International Organization for Migration of the United Nations, and the Secretary General Carlos Sanvi of the World YMCA. We are very privileged that you have been able to join us today, and may I extend a very warm welcome to you and thank you humbly in advance for your contributions. In the second session, we will hear about the work of practitioners in this field, with insights from projects by the YMCA in US and Greece. And then after that, we will be holding a panel discussion, which will focus on the practical experiences in France, Spain, Ireland, and Germany, with the integration of refugees and migrants in the receiving communities. In session 3, we will look to next steps, both in the new emerging strategy of YMCA Europe, but also in the practical cooperation of YMCAs working in this field worldwide. Rachel Ronaldo, as new chair of the Community of Impact, will share her thoughts about this. In session 4, we've created 2 breakout rooms. One, a learning exchange on funding opportunities, and one in which you can share your own projects with your colleagues and peers. Today, we are welcoming 94 participants from over 26 countries to this conference, as well as those who will follow the conference on the live stream on Facebook. May I express my thanks and gratitude to you all for joining us. I will now hand you over to Ed Eggink, who is our chairman this afternoon and the group leader of the YMCA Europe Working Group on Refugees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. Also from my side, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Let's start with session 1. And in session 1, as Emma said, we have 3 excellent speakers. It is my privilege and a great honor to welcome Mr. Margaritis Chinas of the European Commission. He is the Vice President with the European way of life, promoting our European way of life in his portfolio. And this title includes the coordination of the work of the European Commission on a new pact on migration and asylum. That was published in September last, and after that the action program launched in November. It all belongs to his competence. But the responsibilities of Mr. Chinas go further and also include, amongst others, the European education area, making education more accessible and inclusive, and the dialogue with churches and religious organizations. Equality and diversity are keywords in the portfolio of Mr. Chinas. Mr. Chinas is from Thessaloniki in Greece, at least from the area of Thessaloniki. And Mr. Chinas, you will certainly know this square in Thessaloniki. It is called YMCA Square, and as far as I know, the only square in public transportation system, also a bus station next to it, and in the middle that big YMCA building. It's the only one in Europe, at least, with the name YMCA in it. So you must be familiar with YMCA. And that brings me to where we are today. We welcome Mr. Chinas in this YMCA conference. We are happy and honored to have you as our guest. The floor is yours, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be able to join you from Brussels on such a global audience. And indeed, let me start on a personal note. Not only I'm familiar with the YMCA building and square and bus station in my beloved Thessaloniki, but I have myself spent many summers on a YMCA summer camp in the mountain of Pilio in my formative years. And I very much benefited myself from the YMCA culture, spirit of solidarity, togetherness, and inclusion. So it's a pleasure that I'm able to address you in my current capacity. And I'm also wanted to send a warm salute to Dolores Tarafeta, who is a friend and represents YMCA Thessaloniki, and she's scheduled to speak later in the program. Let me say a few words on migration, on the pact proposal for a new EU policy for migration and asylum, and a few words on our action plan for integration and inclusion, which, as you rightly said, are the two main initiatives from the Commission that we presented in the last 4 or 5 months. Let me first start by saying that migration has always been a fact for Europe since the beginning of our history. It has enriched Europe, and it will continue to do so. We Europeans, one way or the other, are sons, daughters of refugees and migrants, or grandsons and granddaughters. This is part of who we are. Having said that, of course, managing migration in its current dimension is a complex issue with many facets and many different dimensions that need to be balanced. Let me start paradoxically with a conclusion. Normally conclusions follow the introductions, but I would start with a conclusion by saying that at this stage, it is regrettable that the European Union does not have a comprehensive, holistic policy for asylum and migration. We have ad hoc solutions. We have a patchwork of ad hoc regulatory situations that produce unequal effects, have unequal impacts, and prevent Europe from managing comprehensively the complexity of the migration phenomenon. To address that, we presented last September our new proposal for a new pact for migration and asylum, one that aims at addressing the main 3 components of what migration represents today for Europe. First, it's the need to reinforce our relations with the countries of origin and transit of migratory flows. Europe will never be able to cope unless we manage to strike comprehensive partnership, win-win agreements with our neighbors and the countries of origin and transit. Through these agreements, we would like to see more opportunities created for the youth from these countries to make a better life where they live, rather than putting their lives in the hands of the smugglers in the Mediterranean. But we also would like to help these countries to reinforce their social, economic, and border procedures so that they can cope with the increasing pressure. At the end of the day, these partnership agreements would have to be done on a basis of equality and a win-win situation. This is good for them as it is good for us. And to do that, we shall mobilize everything that we have at our disposal in terms of EU competence and tools. Not only money, not only investments, not only trade preferences, visa facilitation, but also Erasmus scholarship and scholarships, mobility grants, and people-to-people facilities. The second relevant aspect of the pact, what we're proposing to do is to reinforce the way we manage our borders. It is important that at the borders of the European Union, we have a comprehensive system where we can very quickly assess, examine all asylum requests rapidly, establish the necessary security and health checks, determine the asylum profile of people that are wanting to enter the European Union, determine who is liable for international protection, who is not, and then very quickly making sure that the sequence of the next steps is quickly established so as to avoid the current situation of black spots and bottlenecks that we see in the Greek islands, in Canary Islands, in Calais, and elsewhere. And finally, the third part of the pact is the need for increased solidarity and burden sharing between our member states. It is not fair that only the countries of first reception shoulder a disproportionate burden of managing the asylum requests on behalf of the rest. The European Union, more than everything else, it's a union. And in a union, we live like in a family. We all have to share, we have all to share the responsibility and the solidarity that's required. So we would like to see in the new EU policy a very comprehensive solidarity mechanism that is the norm. And we really believe that the combination of these two elements of solidarity, which is the third consideration, and responsibility, which is the first and the second, would create the necessary balance for this European migration and asylum policy finally to emerge. Because on migration policy, I want to be very clear, nobody's sensitivities are more important than anyone else. We have to balance diverging priorities and we have to merge sensitivities into a common European basis to work. And the second important consideration, I would say, is that we now need a holistic, interconnected system. We do not need ad hoc solutions. We need a circuit system where every stage connects to the next stage. We need a circuit that would allow us to determine very quickly and very efficiently how to protect the people who are fleeing war, dictatorship, and hardship. Let me conclude with a few words on integration and inclusion. This is the other dimension of migratory policy. This is a cornerstone of what we want to achieve. There is no way of introducing acceptance of the migratory policy in society without the successful integration and inclusion of migrants into our societies. We have presented last November a very ambitious action plan for integration and inclusion. We need to do that not only for the people who are joining us as asylum claimers, but also for the Europeans that have a migrant background and very often feel vulnerable and go through the cracks of our health, housing, and education system. We need to be able to absorb, integrate, include all these people into our societies under the same conditions than our own people. And to do that, one thing is very clear. One never integrates into a union or into Europe or into a member state. Integration is always local. One always integrates in a local community, in a city, in a village, and it is why organizations like yours are vital in playing this role and helping us out with specific measures of inclusion and integration. And finally, integration and inclusion is a two-way street. As much as we have the duty to offer all possible integration and inclusion avenues to migrants and asylum seekers, equally, it is their responsibility to harvest these opportunities, to benefit from these possibilities, and integrate into our societies and our way of life. There is no way that this becomes an uneven relationship. Or let me put it differently. If this becomes an uneven relationship, if inclusion and integration is unbalanced, then the social acceptance of migration policy and the impact on politics, on society, on the economy, would equally be unequal, and I dare to predict, painful. I think I should stop here. I very much like to hear from you, and it's an honor also to have my good friend Antonio Vitorino coming in after me. Most of you do not know, but Antonio was in his commissioner years the precursor of EU asylum and migration policy in very difficult times, much more difficult than our times. So it's always a pleasure to share views with him. Thank you again for having him, and I appreciate for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chinas. I'm wondering why the time you referred to of Mr. Vitorino was more difficult than the time you are in now, because I think all nation states in Europe experience the current time as very, very difficult. Not only because of what you said, that the countries need to find a balance between solidarity and responsibility, and that as such is a huge task, and also that a holistic approach is necessary instead of an ad hoc approach, but mainly because you referred at the end to it, that in the receiving communities, the harmony is at some places far lost in the local communities where newcomers try to find a new future and where the hostilities increase instead of decrease from the local population. Populists are popular, so to speak. So I think there is a huge task, and I thank you so much for the work you are doing and what the European Commission is doing in this field. It will take time, but let's cooperate and work together on the same goal. Thank you so much. And that brings me to the already mentioned Mr. Vitorino, the Director General of the IOM, the International Organization of Migration of the UN. And it is also with great pleasure that I welcome you, Mr. Vitorino. You have had a long career already in the government of Portugal, at first as member of the Portuguese Parliament and later, amongst others, as Minister for National Defense and Deputy Prime Minister. By the way, within the government of Mr. Antonio Guterres, who is now the United Nations Secretary General. But you also served, and Mr. Chinas referred to it already, as Commissioner for Justice and Home Affairs of the European Commission in the first years of this century. Mr. Vitorino, dear friends, was elected by the 173 member states of the IOM in 2018 as their new Director General. And I hope you will speak, Mr. Vitorino, about the work you are doing for refugees and migrants, and also those who have to return to their home countries, their countries of origin. We're very happy that you're here, honored, and we welcome you to this conference. Floor is yours, Mr. Vitorino.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. I thank you so much, YMCA, for the invitation, and it's a great pleasure to share this panel with Margaritis. If my times were more difficult, which I sincerely doubt, I have a price to pay, and the price to pay is to be here today as Director General of IOM, a worldwide organization. And indeed, this organization is an organization that deals with migration, people on the move, refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, both from the humanitarian point of view, from the development point of view, and from the human security point of view. And we celebrate this year our 70th anniversary. We have always been working with migrants to solve issues. Many of them affect young people since our own inception. While migration can provide to young people opportunities, of course, we recognize that there are specific challenges associated with being both young and on the move. As a result, we COVID-19 pandemic has been quite disruptive of our lives now for more than 1 year, bringing international mobility and migration to what we could consider a virtual hold and harming the most vulnerable very severely. And the medium to long-term impact of COVID-19 on mobile populations is becoming now apparent, with vaccination campaigns often excluding migrants and the social economic impacts likely to be felt for years to come. And I think that there is evidence that young people are amongst the most vulnerable groups.
To the third speaker in this session, and that is a friend of all of us in the YMCA. Many of you know him, and that is Mr. Carlos Sanve, the Secretary General of the World Alliance of YMCAs. And I welcome Carlos. Carlos was raised in Togo, and he started his international career in 1999 when he joined the staff of the World YMCA in Geneva. From 2007 till 2018, he was the General Secretary of the African Alliance of YMCAs. And from 2011 till 2018, he was also acting as a part-time advisor to the Secretary General of the World YMCA. In 2018, Carlos was elected as Secretary General of the World Alliance, being the first one in that position from Africa. And Carlos will speak about the role of the YMCA in the work for and with refugees and migrants. We are looking forward to your input, Carlos. Be very, very welcome. And the floor is yours, and I hope the connection works.
Thank you, Ed.
Yes, Carlos, you're there. I'm happy.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ed, for your so warm welcome. And also I'd like to acknowledge Emma for her good introduction. Mr. Shinas, what a pleasure to share this platform with you. And I'm still looking forward to hear from Mr. Vitorino, because both of you, you are so well known to us for what you are doing, and your connection with the YMCA is well known, and we appreciate you for what you, both of your organizations are doing on behalf of the displaced. I also thank all my YMCA Europe colleagues for putting together these high quality events. And I thank YMCA from all over the world for taking part and bringing their commitment, ideas, and practical testimony. Thank you, friend, for joining this initiative. I was wondering the difference and the impact we could have witnessed if this meeting was taking place in Lampedusa or Lesbos, to be close to the reality we are talking about. But unfortunately, COVID forbid this. But it's great at least that we can come together in this way. But I'm not giving away for this idea that soon YMCA will meet there and have those who are concerned talking to us instead of us talking on their behalf. And I don't want to use it as an intellectual exercise with a definition, refugee, migrant, etc. Because those are the reality I live with myself. As once I was a refugee, as a young man, I was on the wrong side of the government in my native Togo. And I was not safe in that country, my roots. So I have to run away from that country. And I know what it is to be a refugee. But I'm also a form of migrant too, because I sought to make a difference for myself and the world everywhere else. Changing the world allow me to live in Switzerland, Kenya, and back to Switzerland. And in all those two countries, there are many times I felt welcome, but many other times I felt unwelcome. So I know those reality. What I'm talking about is not a book knowledge for me. But even I can complain, but I'm among the very lucky ones, because there are almost 70 million people worldwide forcibly displaced. 2/3 of them, the international displaced person, displaced inside their country. and the number of migrants are multiplied to the nth degree. And whatever the definition is, two things are clear, and I'm happy Emma pointed out some of those things. First, the majority of the refugee and migrants are young people in the 15 to 29 age bracket, and that automatically makes them the particular concern of the YMCA. And second, that they are the concern of the YMCA because whatever their age, YMCA duty is to help them because we believe in inclusion. Inclusion is part of our value. That means the young, but also the old, the person of any or no faith and any background, the person who have been in a community all his or her life, and the person who have just arrived, the person who is welcome, and especially the one who isn't. We work with all those people, regardless. So some of you might ask, why YMCA organize a conference on migrant and refugee when others like the IOM or UNHCR or other regional or global multilateral organizations are specifically tasked to support them? The answer is very simple. The YMCA is an organization which cares for anyone who needs care. We have always cared for the refugees and migrants, and we will always will. Emma already spoke brilliantly about unregional, so I won't repeat it. Because we know that at the end, no other organization than Red Cross pay more visit and distributed more necessity in prisoner of war camp in every continent, like the World YMCA. Even in those Second World War, we are present in 90 countries at that time, which make us uniquely placed. Please read our YMCA history, and you'll find us how we coordinate assistance to persecuted Jews seeking to migrate and turning wartime help for prisoner of war into post-war help for refugees. We have helped refugees in a litany of unhappy places. The wall of Saigon, Guatemala, the Mekong, Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, Burundi. I don't even have time to name them all. They are part of our YMCA history. And we have a Nobel Peace Prize to show for it. Our first international president, John R. Mott, an American, we got this prize in 1946. And in recent years have been humble and privileged to see YMCA work with refugee and migrants, especially in Greece, Bangladesh, Lebanon, Cameroon. And this work continue. And others will talk about it later. And for welcoming in the North Americas, this is part of their daily work. And we don't just mark the 20th of June or 18th December as refugee days or migrant days. Every day of the year, we help refugees and migrants who we feel have a right to belong. So we have a history, but we have also an active presence. And as a global movement, we are gradually going up gears in support to refugees and migrants. We establish working groups and platforms in each of our 5 areas: Europe, Asia and Pacific, Africa, Latin America and Caribbean, and North America. And to coordinate this, we come together like today to think about our strategy. But no one has done more than YMCA Europe, which developed a YMCA Europe database of refugee projects, which was launched at our 175th anniversary celebration in 2019. Emma already mentioned it, so I won't repeat it. In early 2020, we established a worldwide so-called community of impact on refugee and migrants, aiming at establishing a shared vision, common objective, and working structure to advance global coordination, communication, program, and advocacy work on behalf, but also with refugee and migrant and new immigrant population across the globe. The community of impact is now coordinated by YMCA of New York, and I know that is inspiring leader Rachel Rinaldo will tell you more later today. And I also want to welcome Linda from YMCA of USA, who's going to share the experience of the YMCA of USA in welcoming immigrants and fighting for inclusion all over. I believe that this global initiative is one of the defining feature and platform of our global YMCA journey in the 21st century. So, colleagues and dear friends, I would like to end with a very heartfelt plea to the continent of Europe. And I was so glad that Mr. Shinens points to that direction already. Europe has a tiny fraction of the world refugees and migrants. Countries like Kenya and Uganda have millions and millions more. A third of the population of Lebanon, a country with so many problems of its own, are refugees and migrants. That, my friend, is a generosity of spirit. And yet, Fortress Europe is still one of the least welcoming parts of the world for a refugee or migrant. We live in a fairly toxic political environment where many want even fewer arrivals from other less fortunate countries. Allow me to say this. When Europeans colonized the rest of the world, they didn't have to ask for visa or asylum. And the society they occupied did not send them back home. So I'm proud of what YMCA does in Europe and all over the world to counterfeit hostility toward the refugee and the migrants. But I use this platform to call on Europeans to respect the dignity and the humanity of those who try and seek a better life on this continent, because Europeans also are doing the same thing elsewhere. Right now, we are in a COVID emergency for young and old alike. But I ask you, are the migrants, especially are the refugees within our midst in Europe, seen as part of this emergency? Do they merit getting a vaccine? Are they part of the list of those, the most vulnerable people to get the vaccine? You know, I have 3 friends, refugee friends from my church here in Geneva. They are Somalis and Kurds, and they are good, hardworking people. They have fled persecution in their own country, known unimaginable hardship and antagonism in making their journey to Europe. And after 5 years, they were rejected. And I don't know why they were rejected as asylum seekers in Switzerland. Now they fled to England, where they were held in the Napier disused barrack in Kent, and almost inevitably were among the 400 people there who contracted COVID. Most of the world has suffered the inconvenience of lockdown for a year now. For many migrants and refugees, lockdown is their fate for a year on end. So today, I pledge that YMCA in Europe and the world all over will continue to do all we can for refugees and migrants, and for young and often vulnerable people on the move. And I ask all Europeans, in fact, all citizens of the world, to do the same. We are all God-created people, and we need to stand in solidarity with each other. And I thank you for your attention.
Please hope the technical issues are solved, and I'm very sorry that this interrupted your introduction, but please can you recap short and then continue?
Thank you so much. I was so eager to participate in your meeting that I decided to appear twice, not just one, but to appear twice. Sorry.
You're welcome twice.
I was speaking about precisely what Carlos has just mentioned, access to vaccination. I would just like to also focus on 2 further points. The first one is that we all know that many young migrants return every year to their countries of origin, bringing with them new skills, knowledge, new ideas. And it is important to hear and give space to the youth perspective in reintegration and support young migrants who decide to return to become positive agents of change in their countries of origin.
and whenever relevant, vocational training, education, entrepreneurial support, access to loans could and should be proposed as part of the reintegration support. Having a youth-centered approach that considers the entire migration process can contribute to shaping adequate policies and needs-based support for youth to maximize their potential, whether integrating in the countries of destination, whether reintegrating in their countries of origin. Having said that, I think that youth can have a key role to contribute to the development, but above all, if they feel that they are equal partners, that they are involved in the development agenda at community, regional and national level, together with all relevant development actors. But as Carlos has just mentioned to you, there is a key role for youth and youth organizations in terms of fostering social inclusion in countries of destination. Given the demographic profiles of migrants and of refugees, that in the vast majority are under the age of 35, we believe that youth and youth organizations can serve as an important bridge between migrants and their receiving communities in achieving a truly effective and comprehensive integration policy. And I am very happy to see the importance that the European Commission attaches to having proactive integration policies, not just at national level, but also at regional and local level. Because the success of integration oftenly is played at local level, at the proximity level, workplace, place of housing, of living, the schools, and access to social services. Young people and young organizations have been at the forefront of welcoming refugees in Europe during the crisis in 2015, promoting active citizenship and human rights education. And I believe that young people can become leaders in advocating for and communicating on social issues, including on the topic of migration, understanding the cultural diversity of all those involved in the integration process, which, as Margaritis has said, it's a two-way process. So through their dynamic and creative presence on social media, youth can help steer a positive discourse on migration, and we need a positive discourse on migration, and become ambassadors for diversity and inclusion. Yes, because our societies will be each time more and more diverse, but we need to take care equally of inclusion, human dignity, and equal rights for all. That's the only way of combating the stigmatization of migrants and promoting a much needed fact-based narrative on migration. I believe young migrants and refugees themselves, if equipped with the appropriate resources and skills, can be instrumental in the integration of more recently arrived migrants and refugees. Any comprehensive policy on integration must therefore also tap into migrant youth and capitalize on their bicultural background and their linguistic skills to spearhead the integration of newcomers. So I encourage very much YMCA to pursue the way you are pursuing. And you can count on IOM to support all the efforts in order to make migration a win-win solution, and above all, never leaving anyone behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vitorino. I really appreciate that you put emphasis from your position on the role of youth organizations and the role of young people in the societies. And that makes definitely clear what Carlos also said, that there is a role for the YMCA as one of the larger youth organizations in the world to play a role at local level. And I mention this with some emphasis because there are still too many YMCAs in Europe that do not consider this issue of giving shelter, giving a welcome to newcomers in their countries as a priority. And it should have, because of our history, because of our role in the past, as Carlos mentioned, but also because of the future. Because there is no future, not for the receiving youth and not for the newcomers, if there is no integration and inclusion. So having said this, I would like to thank all three of the speakers in this first session of this conference. Thank you, Mr. Margaritis Chinas, Vice President of the European Commission. Thank you, Mr. Antonio Vitorino, Director General of the IOM. Thank you, Carlos Sanve, World Alliance Secretary General. Thank you so much, and please feel invited and stay during the rest of the conference if you have time for that. Thank you so much.
My name is Baba Musa Sedu. I come from Ghana. I'm 20 years old. I was in Barcelona almost 1 week and I don't have any place to go. My friend have a family here, so then they went and they left me at Barcelona. I just want to come to Zaragoza because I heard that they have an center here. When they come, they can help me to find a better future. The white man helped me and he buy a ticket for me to come to Zaragoza. So when I reached Zaragoza, I don't know anybody, and the policeman saw me. They check my blood, they check my everything, they say I'm fine, like I have a good heart, and they take me to the central. When I came to Spain, I thought I would come and find everything easier. But when I reached, things have become very difficult because you have to fight. So I focus to learn the language so that when someone asks me a question, I can express myself to the person. When I read the Guardianship Central, I was there in almost 1 year, 6 months. I met a lot of people. Some are bad, some are abandoned by their parents, some are having problem with the police, so they try to bring them there so that I can take care of them. So I was there, that place, they helped me to do my passport, they helped me to educate my school, and they helped me to, they give me a better future. I've learned a lot of things about Inca because they teach me how to cook. They teach me how to cook. Like they taught me a lot of things, the language, like information, how to swim. They teach me how to swim, how to read, a lot of things. Like there are a lot of things that they taught me. I can't explain all of them. When I reached in Inca, like my first experience I was in camping with a lot of kids. The camping is international. When they told me that, no, Musa, you go to that camp, like I was I was shy and scared because I believe myself that I can't go there due to my level. I can't go there. But they told me that, Musa, You will go there so that you can able to help the people, you can able to help the kid. My first camping, but they accept me like a family. Yeah, and the place where I went, I was the only black there. So like I was scared small. But when I read there, I got a lot of experience. They accepted me and me too, I accepted them like a family. So I was there helping the kids. We play a lot of match. I was a keeper there. It is a great motivation to be there. Yeah, because many people are trying to be there, they can't reach. So if you are there, you have to take that opportunity to do something better. Yeah, I'm feeling better now. I see my future like brighten, but not yet. Still, I have to focus because I have a lot of things to do, and I have a lot of things to study. So right now, I'm seeing my future. Right now, it's not bad, but it's normal. So you have to focus. I just want to reach a top, so I'm on the process. I just want to be an engineer, but I don't get the opportunity. I was in senior school form 2, and I left my country. Yeah, I'm working and saving the money, but sometimes I have to help my family because I'm the only man in my family. I have 8 sisters. Yeah, so sometimes I have to send money to my parents so that them too they can feed themselves, they can buy stuff, anything that they need. I have to provide them with shelter and everything. Yeah, my motive is to be in the university, but yet it is not in my dream because like right now I'm working. You understand? Right now I'm working, so I'm focusing on the work so that if I get opportunity, so that I can be there.
This was the first of 5 videos which we have asked to local YMCAs, national YMCAs to produce. And we invited them to let young people speak from their YMCAs with a refugee or migrant background, talking about 3 questions. What was your journey? Where did you come from? How was your journey? What is your ambition? And how do you experience the YMCA? This first one came from YMCA Spain, and we have some more to come from YMCA Thessaloniki, YMCA North Down in Ireland, YMCA Finland together with YMCA the Gambia, and finally YMCA Armenia and YMCA Karabakh. The quality of all videos is not always excellent, but please don't assess the quality of the video, listen to the people, listen to the young people which are in the picture and listen to their stories. They have a lot to say. A second remark before we move into session 2 is about questions. If you have any questions, there will be time to react to your questions in session 3 and in session 4 of this conference. To prepare for that, I would appreciate if you can send me your questions directly to me via the chat box at the bottom of your screen. In case you have questions about whatever speaker in the program, please write it down there and we'll try to allocate your question later on in the program. So this brings us to session 2 of this conference, and there we go into the practical experiences with integration projects by YMCAs. And as you have heard already from Emma, it has 2 parts, this session. The first part is introductions from YMCA of the USA, Linda Gonzalez Chavez, and YMCA Greece, Dolores Tarafeta from Thessaloniki. And after that, there will be a panel discussion moderated by Juan Simuez. But at first, Linda Gonzalez. Linda is very experienced in the YMCA of the USA. She is the Senior Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, and she has a lot of experience in the work with newcomers, refugees, migrants. In her role, she is providing strategic support to the YMCAs in the USA, working to ensure access, inclusion, and engagements for all, and that is her core business. I'm so happy, Linda, that you're here. You were our guest already in the first conference of YMCA Europe about refugee issues in 2016. It is a great pleasure to welcome you back again. The floor is yours, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. It is such an honor to be here. I remember our times in the Netherlands and just how important this work is and what you all do every day. I want to recognize my colleagues, Trang Trong Kill, who leads this work nationally, and Rachel Ronaldo, who not only serves in New York, but just gives this opportunity to engage newcomers and immigrants across our country. So I wanted to start by talking about the challenges that we've had as a society in the United States. We experienced 4 years of anti-immigration policies. It set much of our work back. We experienced, as many of you did with us, the travel bans, the slowed immigration processes. As many of you, and I see my colleague Jody Williams here, the threats to deferred action for childhood arrivals and what happened at the Mexico-US border, witnessing the caging, the imprisonment of children and having to watch our children at the Mexico-US border. And many of you that have journeyed with us in our work in the Casas Migrantes, having to see our children incarcerated in that way and separated from their families, incredibly challenging. We witnessed the withdrawing of temporary protective status of many of our nations, such as Haiti and Liberia. We also recognized that the immigration and custom enforcement that happened in the United States also really impacted us. We witnessed a stark decline of admission to refugees in the United States, which impacted countries across the globe. In 2016, the United States had welcomed more than 85,000 refugees, and in 2020, less than 12,000. And I know that that impacted all of us. We also saw this extreme vetting that happened, and it resulted in many of you having to take on more accommodation of our newcomers and our refugees. So please know that we recognize that. These last 4 years have also left animosity towards immigrants and this misinformation that happened where we demonized our newcomers and had to address racist, nationalistic, and xenophobic language and issues that we're still dealing with. And then we had this pandemic of COVID, which, like many of you, impacted us in the United States. We're still addressing job losses, the continued issues that we're all dealing with across the globe. And as our colleagues have mentioned, the new issues that we have related to access to the vaccine. This has impacted our YMCA. This has impacted our New American Welcome Centers. We had to pivot much of our service to address immediate prices for food and immediate needs. The New American Welcome Centers, and I'm so grateful for folks like Rachel that's on this line that continues to address this. Nevertheless, we have this amazing opportunity now that we're starting to work towards. YMCA of the USA in our operating plans is committed to becoming an anti-racist, multicultural organization. At the heart of this are opportunities for our newcomers and immigrants. We're already starting to work with the new Biden administration, who are addressing some of the executive orders of the last 4 years, and we're starting to address more inclusive policies. So we're incredibly excited about that. We have a new, some of our colleagues that we've worked with very closely in past administrations are now leading some of these efforts. So we feel that we're able already to start addressing our deferred access to childhood immigrants, They are now reintegrating back into society. They're feeling far more welcomed. We're shifting this narrative and looking at things such as belonging beginning with us, our welcoming week work. We have an amazing opportunity globally to introduce you to our amazing partner of Welcoming America. I've shared with Ed some of our successes in the past, but this is where the real work happens, human to human, where we're able to be very intentional about cross-cultural interactions and ensuring that people welcome our neighbors, welcome the stranger. And we're so thrilled in much of our welcoming work that more than 75% of those that participate, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands that are participating in this work, are actual born in the United States, welcoming folks. So we're really excited about this. This gives us an opportunity as a YMCA to build bridges rather than building walls, building bridges between our communities and recognizing that everybody, no matter what your background, no matter what your lived experience, can feel welcomed and engaged at the YMCA. We're looking at how we work with young people to change the narrative of separation and to build this concept of solidarity, where we all link arms together and do our best to reach the most vulnerable. And this welcomes so many of our communities of color. As many of you know, we've seen after the murder of George Floyd on camera, May 25th, that we're starting to address systemic racism in the United States, recognizing that we have over 400 years of enslaved people having to deal with systems that they had no part of building, and how we're able to globally look at this. We've been so excited to talk with Carlos and many of our colleagues from South Africa to Colombia to see how we start leaning into conversations about anti-racism, truth and reconciliation that allows us to begin addressing our past so that we can build a more promising future. Conversations like this is what really starts us here, Ed. So I'm very humbled. I'm very humbled to be here with all of you, to learn with all of you, but most excitedly, really very, very thrilled that we are able to have these conversations, address our community of impact through the work that many of you are doing, so that we continue to build a world that is far more hopeful, far more forgiving, in solidarity with our newcomers, our immigrants, and our refugees. And with that, I look forward to further conversation and to having an opportunity to engage at a deeper level with all of you. Thank you for inviting me, Ed. I will turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate your input, and I especially appreciate all the work you do, and together with your colleagues in the US. The words are similar. You spoke about solidarity, you spoke about equality, you spoke about fighting polarization, you spoke about inclusion, integration. And I think these are not only keywords for politicians, but these are keywords for anyone in the local communities, and give reason to think about that. Thank you so much, and please stay in the conference, and
absolutely,
we will continue to cooperate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
This brings me to Europe. We come back to Europe. Greece, Italy, and Spain are the main doors for migrants and refugees to enter Europe. Carlos mentioned already the island of Lampedusa, the first small tiny island in the Mediterranean Sea that you reach when you cross the sea from Northern Africa. He mentioned the Canary Islands, part of Spain, when you cross the sea from Western Africa and come into Europe through the Canary Islands. But the main gate was, especially when the Syrian war started, was Greece. We all remember the pictures when we looked at our news journals on the television in 2015 of the massive influx, if you may use that word, of people that were fleeing from the war in Syria. Many drowned. We all remember the pictures. And Greece was at the forefront of delivering assistance. And Greece is still at the forefront of delivering assistance. The word Moria felt already, the camp there. But when you use the word solidarity, solidarity is still sometimes far away in Europe when it is about helping the Greek people to work on a better future of the people there already for years. YMCA in Thessaloniki is one of the YMCAs that has been there from the very first moment in giving assistance to refugees from Syria, from Afghanistan, and further on. And therefore, it's my great pleasure to welcome Dolores Tarafeta from YMCA Thessaloniki. Dolores is also a very appreciated member of my working group to tell about a project about integration of newcomers in her home city, in Thessaloniki, by the YMCA. Dolores, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you. It is an honor for the YMCA Thessaloniki to contribute with our experience to today's discussion and hopefully to future actions, knowing, of course, that not every experience is exportable. I am Dolores Tarrafeta, and I have been working in the refugee programs with the YMCA since October 2018. As you all probably know, the refugee crisis started in Greece in 2015-2016. And the YMCA Thessaloniki could not, but did not want to remain indifferent to this reality that was knocking our doors. We have to act. How could we act? Marius, could you please next slide? We have to act following, of course, the values of our organization, the formula that has been successful for more than 175 years. The next one, maybe. Taking care of body, mind, and spirit of all our beneficiaries, and with action, either family, either peer-to-peer based action. I want to say that for the YMCA Thessaloniki, the refugee challenge is a humanistic one. We see it from a humanistic approach, and we aim to the full integration of this population in our societies. And we honestly believe that we are the best suited for integration. And you'll say, how can she say this? How is she so arrogant? Let me explain you why do I say this. I say this because the YMCA Thessaloniki is a benchmark in the city. It has been there for 100 years. We have excellent facilities in the city center. The building that you see down there, it was shown before also in this conference, is our building. The square is called YMCA Square, the bus stop. We offer many programs every year, but the vast majority of our members are locals from all different backgrounds of our society. We have decades of experience in social action. We have the know-how in social action. We have also over 1,500 volunteers with expertise in social action. So if integration is about building bridges, we know many organizations that do great job in Thessaloniki with refugees, but they address only refugees, they address only vulnerable population. The YMCA has one foot on every side of the bridge. It should be easy for us to welcome newcomers with so many people who feel attached to the organization, and one organization that's so deeply rooted in our city. I would like to share with you the experience that we have with the project The Adrasis. Marius, next slide, please. The Adrasis in Greek means interaction. This project started in October 2018 and finished in May 2020. It was founded by the Open Society Foundation, and the total number of kids that directly benefited from the program was 124. The program consisted on 2 separate zones. In the morning, children refugees aged 2 to 4 participated in a bilingual educational program in Greek and Arabic, both. The aim of it was their smooth integration into the educational system. So it had a complete integration character, education and integration. In the afternoon, it was open for everybody. Children from 2.5 to 6 years old, refugees or locals, could attend workshops on different topics. This was Monday to Thursdays. So, for example, on Monday they have music, on Tuesday science, on Wednesday theater, and so on. But in addition, Fridays or weekends, social events or fests were organized. They were for all the family. The aim was to further involve local community, enhance integration, and increase the engagement of the local community. I could be talking for hours about the addresses, the way it was designed, the way it was implemented, but I would really like to focus now on the afternoon and on Fridays. We were a little bit afraid in the beginning. Marius, please, next slide. That we wouldn't be able to attract Greek families. I have to recognize that. But thank God that fear was overcome. We had a 50% of participation. Please, the one before. Marius, one slide before. This one. We had a 50% of participation of Greek families. And the next one, you were okay. And we were sure that the seminars would be successful. Okay, we were sure, we thought so, because we had very good teachers and we had a very good program, and children, they do interact. They don't have these fears with the language, they don't have these strong rules, they just play. It's easier for them, much easier. But what happened was that parents were bringing their children to the addresses and they wouldn't leave. They were sitting down in the next room and they were waiting for their children to finish. So we had every day a group of adults of all different cultures sitting together. What would we do? We tried to provide them with some ingredients, some elements. We gave them a safe environment. The room was very nicely, it was very well decorated. We had some trained volunteers around. We were serving tea. We could have some biscuits. We had regularity because they were coming at least once a week for the seminar, but mostly they were coming twice a week because they were coming also on Fridays for the parties. They had a common interest because they all had children with the same age. We all know that's a very big common interest, but also most of them, they lived in the same neighborhood. So they would go shopping in the same supermarket, they would play in the same park, etc. As a result of all this, we saw that through time, we had changes in perception. To illustrate this, please let me tell you the example of this woman, this mother. She came to us in September, October to register her kid. And she told us, okay, I'm going to register my child, but I am a little bit hesitant, I am a little bit reluctant because I really don't want my kid to confuse languages. I don't want him to come home and start speaking Arabic, let's see what happens. She was a little bit, hesitant. I have to tell you that at the end of the year, this very same mother, she came to us and she told us, oh, my kid is amazing. He says words in Arabic, he says words in Turkish, and he's able even to relate Greek words to Turkish words. He said, my child is very talented. I even believe that he could become an interpreter. So We heard that it was like gold for our ears, because we believe that these languages that she was probably underestimating, they became something very valuable. But we believe that the very same process happened with the persons. So it was important, this interaction. I have to say that also language barriers disappeared. We could see fathers, mothers talking for more than half an hour without a common language. They were making jokes. They were telling jokes. They were talking about soccer. They were exchanging recipes. They weren't just looking to their phones as we would expect. No, they had a big interaction. Relationships grew spontaneously. But to be honest with you, I think these relationships that started growing, to make them long-term and to make them stable, we needed something else. And that's where the fests, the parties, and the events that we are programming for Fridays and weekends took a part. Please, let's go to the next slide, Mario. So in the time that the project was on, we organized 71 events. We had every kind of stimulus going on. We went to the beach, we went to the farm, we went to concerts, to theaters, we cooked, we circus. We had coaches, teachers, trainers from the YMCA Thessaloniki coming doing activities in the addresses, and the addresses was coming to YMCA Thessaloniki. The kindergarten of the YMCA Thessaloniki visit the addresses, and the addresses visited. Amazing also the group of traditional Greek dances that went to dance to the addresses, and they started dancing their own traditional dances. So all these stimulus were very important. They bounded very much the families together, for all the families. We have donations from different organizations, the wise men, YMCAs, local businessmen, volunteers, interns. So I would say that this was the structure of the bridge. And this made that this small seed could grow, because it was the sun, the water, and the fertile soil. Please, let's go to the next slide. We presented this project in the municipality on the 15th April 2018, and I want to share with you this moment because it was very touching, it was so emotional. This was this father of a Greek boy who took the microphone, and he said, okay, let's be honest. I first registered my child in the addresses because it was for free. I thought, what the hell, YMCA activity for free? I'm going to write my child. But now, really, our hearts and our minds have opened. Now, even if I got the best scholarship for the best music school in the city, I wouldn't want it. I would reject it. I want my child to go to the addresses. We are a family. They had learned so much about the people, the other cultures, how close we are after all. I have to tell you that this man, he had a company, offset and printing machines. He took all the kids to his company. He was showing us around his machines. It was amazing. I have to tell you that I had read in many academic papers that the best way to reduce prejudice is interaction. But really, in this case, I saw it with my own eyes. The best way to reduce prejudice is to foment interaction. So just to sum it up a little bit, Marius, please go to the next slide. I could say that the YMCA Thessaloniki social integration formula would be to offer quality, diverse, and numerous activities in a safe environment with a certain degree of regularity, bringing together people with common interests, with the supervision of trained volunteers and designed by professionals. All these have as a result that language barriers are overcome, relationships grow spontaneously, and there are changes in perception. All these go to real social integration. I know that even when the addresses was closed, for some months they were still meeting each other. I don't know if they still relate because with the pandemics, even if they want it, it is difficult. But I think we really managed to achieve a real social integration. I know that I'm running out of time. This is photos of some activities. I'm running out of time, but I just want to share with you another small thing, another small initiative that we did, because it is very easy and very cheap to do. So maybe You can do it in your own YMCAs after the pandemics. This was as simple as this, to drink a coffee on Friday afternoon. We took volunteers from the Committee of Refugees of the YMCA and beneficiaries from our programs, and we just put them together to drink a coffee. The only rule was that we had some words that were forbidden. We could not say the word help, what can I do for you? Nothing like that. We were all equals. We were all friends. We were talking about our lives. We were sharing the moment. I can say that this was very successful. I don't know, the beneficiaries, they are so open. They invite you to their place the next day. This was on Friday. They were saying, come tomorrow evening at home. We will have dinner all together. If you allow me, if you ever plan to do this, if you don't do it already, to give you some tips, not forming two big groups, because in the beginning the groups were big and the conversations were a bit lost. Also to bring families that speak just one different language. When the same sentence needs to be translated to Arabic, Sorani, Farsi, and Turkish, the communication is lost. And if it is possible, to connect people with the same interests. If you know that a member of the committee loves photography, and you know that a refugee back in his home, he was a photographer, just try to bring them together. And of course, a little bit of regularity helps. Well, I think that's it. Just to mention that the YMCA Thessaloniki tries to include the refugee population in every activity that is organized, because, please, Mario, go to the last slide, because to include means to be included. I thank you very, very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I think in session 4, I will be able to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dolores. Your video is coming up now.
سلام خدمت تمام فارسی زبانان. من اهل ایران هستم. 14 ژانویه 2018 وارد کشور ایران شدم. چند ماهی رو در آتن زندگی کردم. سپس در کمپ در سالونیک زندگی کردم و بعد اون از طرف دولت ایران به ما خونه دادن.
My name is Ramazan Nasri, 22 years old from Afghanistan, and it's been 2 years since I have been living in Greece.
Hello, I am from Syria. I arrived in Greece with my family in 2016, since the war started. My life turned upside down. For 4 years in a row, we were moving from one place to another inside Syria. We were running from the bombing of the military and the killing of ISIS. After 3 years of running away in Syria, we managed to reach Turkey. Then we decided to go to Greece through the sea.
خدا رو شکر الان حال خوبی دارم. خونی که بهمون دادن خونی کاملا تمیز و مناسبه. دوست دارم که پیشرفت کنم، ادامه تحصیل بدم در رشته برق و آموزش کودکان که قبلا در ایران تحصیل کرده بودم در این مورد.
It's clear that people who receive a higher education have more opportunities and options in the modern life. Due to that, I'm planning to go to university and study my favorite subject, which is computer science, and become a productive person for my community. I would say answering to that question for refugees like me is not so easy, because we fled our countries and we lost what we had, and now we're starting from zero. But of course, I have some goals and thoughts, which one of them is receiving a higher education. I hope I achieve this one at least.
We applied to the asylum in Greece in 2016. In 2017, my husband and I started working in NGO. Thank God I got the chance to see my children living their lives in safety and stability and attending school to continue their studies. The only thing that is stressing me is that I don't have long-term work.
اکنون همراه یک مربی یونانی در YMCA در شیفت عصر از کودکان مراقبت می‌کنیم و به اونها آموزش میدیم. متشکرم.
With YMCA of Thessaloniki, I've been working as Farsi interpreter and culture mediator last year, and I'm very grateful for this experience and what I learned among their amazing team.
In 2018, I started working in YMCA as facilitator.
Thank you, Dolores, and thank you, Thessaloniki YMCA and YMCA Greece. And this video introduces us in the next topic, which is actually a discussion about challenges with integration of refugees and migrants in the receiving communities, and with a focus on the YMCA role. And we have this afternoon 4 panelists, 4 colleagues, the 4 of them truly connected with the local level. As Vice President Sipers mentioned, this is where integration can take place in a more effective way. It's my pleasure to introduce the 4 of them. Charlotte Faure from YMCA Les Rochetones in France, Maya Hellman from YMCA Nuremberg in Germany, Pedro Fuello, the National General Secretary of YMCA Spain, and Monica Siok-Dierturger from YMCA North Down in Ireland. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be having an interactive panel discussion with them. So if I may start by asking each of you, starting with Maya, where is the focus of your work? What do you exactly do in your YMCA, and what is your position? And I would ask each of the 4 of you to introduce yourselves briefly, and then we'll go into the questions. Thank you.
So hello, my name is Maya Heimann, and I work for the YMCA Nuremberg in Bavaria in Germany. And I work as a social worker and as a legal consultant in a communal accommodation run by the Bavarian government. And we consult refugee families from around 13 countries there. And of course, because I work for the YMCA, I'm also involved in program work and activities we do there.
Thank you. And Charlotte?
Yes, hi. So I'm a legal advisor also, but in France, it's in an accommodation center next to Paris in the suburbs named Le Rocheton. And we have like 100 refugees in our center, families, but also young men. They are from French-speaking countries, but also like Congo, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and also people from Afghanistan, Sudan, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. And also welcome, Charlotte. Pedro?
Hello everyone. So good to see so many friends around. My name is Pedro and I'm the National General Secretary of YMCA Spain. We have 22 centers spread out in 10 different regions in Spain. And we have 4 different refugees and migrants programs that I will talk a little bit later on maybe. Okay.
Thank you, and welcome, Pedro. And
Thank
Monica.
Monica Ciogiertuga, YMCA North Down. I coordinate ethnic minorities support here at YMCA North Down. Our project works with refugees, mostly from Syria, resettled here in Northern Ireland under Vulnerable Persons Relocation Scheme, and also with migrants from Eastern Europe. We provide advocacy and advice services, bilingual services, and also English classes, support groups to vulnerable men and women and young people.
Thank you, and welcome also, Monica. We'll go back to Maya with a very concrete aspect of this panel, which is what would you be doing at YMCA Nuremberg in terms of supporting integration of refugees in your community through your programs?
Mm-hmm. So talking about integration, as a YMCA Nuremberg, we try to operate on 2 different levels to support integration in the city of Nuremberg as a receiving community. And the first way is through our legal advising and social work that we do in the refugee accommodation to try and support the families there to take part in the social life in Nuremberg by helping them to attend language schools, to get social care, to maybe open a bank account, to just to settle in the city, and we offer them help by giving them space to ask their questions about life in Nuremberg. But also we try to support integration within the YMCA through giving families a chance to take part in social life. And we try to do this by having specific programs for refugees and migrants where we create spaces where people can meet. And I'm a big advocate for creating spaces where people can just sit together, as Dolores gave us the example of people sitting around a table and drinking tea together. So we have quite a similar program, which you will be able to see in a video later, and where people just can talk, and no matter their background, just be welcomed and be able to be welcomed into our YMCA. But we don't want to stop there. We don't want to reduce people to their refugee status. So we try to engage into a process that we call interkulturelle Öffnung in Germany, which means an intercultural opening, where we try to open our programs to and to be very intentional to invite people with a refugee status or migrants to our regular weekly programs for children, for young adults, invite people to our summer camps, and maybe even become volunteers themselves, where they can give something as well and participate as any other YMCA member. So just to give you maybe a nice example, like before the pandemic, we had a city fair that we have before the summer starts every year in Nuremberg. And there the YMCA Nuremberg was managing a food truck where we would say, we would sell falafel. And this food truck was actually managed by a young Syrian man who started coming to our programs and then continued volunteering on a weekly basis. And he managed this food truck. And eventually, after a few years, he even became a colleague of mine in the YMCA, as he became a sous chef in a hostel run by the YMCA around the area.
Excellent, and that is definitely the YMCA mission in action, as you mentioned, through the programs that you are developing in Nuremberg with that intercultural approach. And let's turn now to another place in Europe, which is Les Rocheton in France, which is a specific center of the YMCA in France, with a strong emphasis on asylum seekers and refugees. And I would ask Charlotte, what is the main focus that you continue doing in La Rocheton? What will be the main kind of initiatives that you develop at your local YMCA?
Yes, so in our accommodation center, we have different programs also. We focused on the French classes because it's always an obstacle for integration. So we have a program for this, but we also have computer workshop because sometimes there is also an obstacle to have access to all we have on the on the web, and with the pandemic situation, it's a huge obstacle for refugees and asylum seekers on their procedures. So, and they are very happy to understand the French system because sometimes they feel like they are lost. So there is also, we have the every year young volunteers from YMCA. They're from Germany. they come here and they help us also with the programs. Every volunteer have a program, and we have like piano classes for children, and it's also a way to exchange experiences and for the young refugees and meet other people in this kind of programs.
Thank you, Charlotte. And the nationalities that you are receiving in La Rocheton, which are the nationalities that you receive, and are those refugees, those migrants sent from the government, from the city, or is it from any other institution that you receive at the center?
No, it's organized by the state. There is a procedure, and we only can welcome in the accommodation center the refugees that are in the system. Sorry to tell it like that, but we have like 100 places, and we have the aim with the social workers for them to become independent with their accommodation, the language, the work. And so after we manage to have all this stability, they can go on their house, and then there is a new place, and it's the state that organize who can come.
Thank you, Charlotte. And continue our journey a little bit more south. Let's come to Spain and ask Pedro Fuello, Secretary General of the National YMCA in Spain, what would be the main projects that you develop on the national level with an impact on the local YMCAs on this topic?
Mm-hmm. We have four main projects. The first one will be the refugees program, what we call the refugees program, which is actually a residence for newcomers, for people who ask for the status of refugee to the Spanish government. This program is developed in cooperation with the Spanish government. So until they reach or not that status of refugees, they stay with us in both residence and apartments in a city named Salamanca that you know very well, because you're from there, actually. The second one will be the one from migrant minors. We have 16 apartments for kids that are around 17, late 16, 17, becoming 18 years old. And that is a critical age for them, because whenever they are minors and they come to Spain, they're taken care by the government, by the regional governments, so that is no problem. But whenever they become 18, they have to leave the program, and that is a huge issue there. It's a huge issue because they have to leave a program. They don't have a working permit, and actually they have kind of a residential permit to be in Spain, a residential visa to become residents, but they don't have a working permit. And most of the time, since they've been only in Spain for maybe 6-8 months, they don't manage the language. Most of them are from Africa. All of them are from Africa. They don't speak the language, and they don't have skills. So there's a huge challenge there. So we have 16 apartments spread in 4 different cities in Spain. So they come to us, and we start what we call an emancipation program. We try to we start this race against the clock, trying to put them into the right path to become good citizens in the future. And it's hard because they're also teenagers. They're migrants, and they're also teenagers, and they're by themselves. So it's a hard program. The third one would be everything we do with families and their kids in all our centers, because very much related to social work, also integration, but mostly related to social work, and especially with the kids. School dropping rate in Spain is for migrants doubles the rate for locals. So it's around over 30%, which is huge. So they need a lot of support there. And the fourth program we developed, it's everything related to communications, advocacy, studies, reports, and things like that, and all our work trying to create some kind of sensibility among our society regarding these situations. That will be mainly the 4 programs. Then a lot of local initiatives. So these will be the 4 programs we have with the most impact.
Thank you. That's very clear. The 4 initiatives, the 4 programs across the country through the YMCA. Let's go literally to the other side of Europe now as we continue our journey, and ask Monica from YMCA Northdown, what would be your main areas of work in order to facilitate and support integration of refugees, migrants, and newcomers?
So first of all, we are providing support on a very practical level, and we are very privileged because we can usually do it in newcomers' own language, because we have 2 Polish speakers on our team, 1 Russian and Latvian speaker, and also 2 Arabic speakers. So it makes things much easier for both for us and for our service users. So language is extremely important. It's the main obstacle to integration. So trying, to help people to access services, and it is, as I said, much easier when we can do it in people's own language. And so we are helping with things like housing, accommodation, welfare, accessing health services, and we are filling a lot of applications for people. We're making phone calls to GP, to schools. So as I said, it's a very practical help. And secondly, we are facilitating English classes to help people with absorbing their new language. So we are doing it on 2 levels, on absolute beginners level for newcomers, and also more advanced classes for those who have some level of English. We also recognize that there are many vulnerable men and women among migrants and refugees we are hosting in our communities. So we are facilitating groups for them. We have women groups and we have men's groups, and we are trying these groups to be facilitated in people's own language again. So because majority of our service users will be Syrian refugees, we have female Arabic speaker working with women, and male Arabic speaker working with men's group. We also have international homework club in our YMCA, and BME Youth Club for newcomers coming from Eastern Europe and for refugees. So we see it as a step to access mainstream YMCA youth programs, and it works really well for young people. And also, we recognize the need for our service users to maintain their culture and language. So normally we are not talking about integration, we are talking about inclusion, because to me integration is something that happens really rarely, because and it also it is about losing something. So we don't want our clients to lose something. We want people to have skills to adapt to their new life in their new countries, but also we want them to have roots, to have their history, to have their language. And that's why we're trying to support these needs. We have two very successful projects. One of them is Polish supplementary school, which runs on Saturday morning. And it provides Polish language and history geography classes for Polish migrants in our area. And also 2 years ago, we started similar project on maybe smaller scale for Syrian refugees children. And we have two volunteers who preparing the classes and teaching refugee children their own language and culture. So again, we recognize it is very important to work with local communities, because as it has been mentioned earlier on in this conference, there is no integration without local communities, without the acceptance of local communities. So we are organizing awareness raising workshops. We are trying to work with local communities to help them to understand better the cultures and obstacles to integration.
Thank you, Monica. And speaking about that integration and that inclusion that you mentioned about, coming back to you, Maya, which obstacles do you actually find in Nuremberg as you try to facilitate that inclusion within your beneficiaries as newcomers? Which are the obstacles that you find, the main obstacles?
We definitely faced obstacles until now. I've been talking about what has been working for us, but there's many things where we still have to learn and where we're still in the middle of a process. So every day as I work in the refugee accommodation, I see lots of needs that families have, that people have. And then because I'm a member of the YMCA Nuremberg, I see the huge gap between the realities of life that families live in as they live in a single room in a refugee accommodation. During the pandemic, there was this very popular hashtag stay at home, and I felt like the whole world was pulling back into their homes, and then there were these families in one single room, no school or homeschooling, no internet connection. And it was very, very difficult. So every day as I go home from work, I wonder how can we as a YMCA respond to these needs. So one thing we're trying right now is to set up help for homework for children who've been homeschooled for almost a year now and who are really starting to become school droppers. And so we're trying to respond, but of course all the group activities are not allowed so far. And also I think it's sometimes very difficult to bring people together, especially in this time, but even before that, as sometimes the realities they live in are worlds apart, even if they all live in the same city. So it's a process that we are in, and where I think we still have to learn a lot. And one other thing, I think an obstacle is that we sometimes think that we know the solutions or the programs we can offer. And I had this really eye-opening conversation with some of our friends who participated in one of our programs, and they were young people from Iran and from Syria, and they came to me and they said, Maya, why can't we just sit and have drink some coffee and some tea together? Why do we always have to talk about a topic or be in a program? Why are you Germans so much about having programs? So I think it is very important that we really listen to people more and to ask them what they need, or maybe they just don't need anything, they just want someone to talk to. So I think it's a process, and yeah.
Exactly, and as you were saying before, also Maya, it's about creating those spaces that you were mentioning. And I would ask the same question to you, Charlotte. Which are the main obstacles that you find in your center in La Rocheton?
Yes, well, we find, I think, the same obstacles as everyone, like the language. it's always complicated. There is also the psychological part that is very important, because sometimes we have our deadlines for the procedures, for all the paperwork, and they lived so much things in their country arriving in France, and we asked them a lot, appointments, we are next to Paris. There is a lot of things to understand also about the dynamic of the city, and then sometimes they just need to calm and have access to psychologists, and sometimes it's hard also for this health part. So I think it's a very big issue. After the other obstacles for refugees, for inclusion or integration, it's the access to work. Sometimes they think in Paris there is a lot of work, but it's not as easy. There are we have some codes that sometimes they don't understand. And the last one, it's about accommodation. There is not too much housing in our local where we are here, and it's very expensive, and this is very complicated.
Yes, and also, Monica, you mentioned some of the challenges that you face on a daily work. But if you can just identify one main issue that you face in this process, what would it be?
So I think language is definitely the main one, but apart from language, I would say cultural barriers are also very, very important obstacle to integration between newcomers and local community. So the things like even clothing, what people eat, how they react to things, if they obey local rules. So I recognize the role we have in educating both the newcomers and the receiving community about how they can live together peacefully. And I believe, if we let people retain their culture, but if we teach them that they need to obey the rules, it should make a difference.
Thank you, Monica. And to close this topic, Pedro, when you develop those 4 areas of program, which will be the challenge that you face in terms of inclusion of the young migrants within your community, and of course, maybe also within the YMCA?
I would say that each group has like its own specific issue. For the first ones, for refugee programs and even migrants, minor migrants, the legal issue is a big issue. To get the papers to work, to get the working visa in Spain is a huge issue, and that's in addition to the language barrier for sure and a cultural barrier, but the legal issue is huge. For families, there is a huge economic issue. It's a huge economic issue. During the pandemic, these families, most of them, they are employed into the hospitality area, restaurants or cleaning or things like that. And that has fallen down absolutely in Spain. So we have some serious economic issues there, very serious economic issues. And for the 4th area, well, regarding families, also second generations, and what are their expectations for them, and if we are going to have the same problems in the next generation with those who have lived in Spain for long. And the fourth area, for advocacy reports and so on, probably fake news. Fake news is a big issue, because there is a lot of stories going around social media and around big groups of people, thinking that there's a lot of resources for these people, and once they step in Spain, they receive 1,000 euros and 2 cars and a house and things like that. All those fake news is something we definitely have to fight against.
Thank you so much. A quick question to any of you who would like to respond in terms of the funding for these initiatives. Who would be your main partner in terms of supporting these projects, these initiatives? on your local level, on your national level, European level?
So for us in, sorry.
So go ahead, sorry.
So for us in Ireland, it's the Executive Office, which is our governing body in Northern Ireland. They are our main funder, but we are also getting funding from other organizations and institutions.
Thank you.
We have national government, also national government with money coming from, with resources coming from Europe. And we also have social services in those services that are related to social work.
Thank you. I know if there's any point that any of you would like to ask to each other or to share with each other or with others, there's also, as Ed reminded us, there's a chat in which you can post questions, and we will have definitely in the next session, we'll have time to share more experiences. We know there's a lot happening in Europe. And is there anything else, just to finalize in last minute, to share or to ask to each other?
My reflection will be that we also need to put some focus on innovation here and see how can we accelerate processes and all that, because it's something that is going to grow very fast in the coming years. That will be my reflection.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Maya, Charlotte, Monica, and Pedro.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to having you speaking at the conference. This shows the relevance of this work within the local level at YMCAs across Europe, bringing us not only as one of the historic movements dealing with this topic since our very first foundation back in London in 1844, but throughout history and now, and for sure in the future. And this shows that is relevant, and we know there's much more examples across Europe, but we chose these four diverse initiatives. We'll finalize with a short video from YMCA Northdown in Ireland and prepare for the next sharing. Thank you. Thank you to the four of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Noor Kinno and I'm Kurdish from Syria. I was living in one of the most beautiful places in the world, and it's called Syria. Actually, it was, and I believe that one day it will return as beautiful as before. In 2010, I was at secondary school in my home country working towards the baccalaureate in life sciences with the aim of going to the medical school so I could follow my dream. Unfortunately, the war started in my area in 2011 and postponed my plans and dreams. For the next 7 years, we were obliged to flee from one place to another, escaping indiscriminate shelling. My education was disrupted, so I tried my best to pursue my studies in spite of the very difficult circumstances. After a long, tragic and difficult journey, my family and I finally arrived to Northern Ireland in August 2018. A place of safety at last, and I dared to dream once more that I could work towards being an effective person to make a difference in other people's lives and finally to be part of the health sector, the dream that I always had. And Alhamdulillah, today I'm studying medical sciences and also I'm Kurdish and Arabic to English interpreter with Diversity NI, and finally I'm an Arabic teacher for a group of the kindest children at the YMCA. Through my integration into society and due to the voluntary work, I noticed that the Arabs community children in Bangor and Arts need support so they don't forget their language and identity over time. All thoughts started to be a reality at the council meeting when Donna Mackey introduced me to Monica and told her about my ambition of teaching children the Arabic language and its grammar. Actually, I was impressed by the efforts of the YMCA towards giving us an opportunity to preserve our identity and culture. For me, YMCA, in addition to providing social services, it is interested in organizing activities and events throughout the year to create an atmosphere of affection and respect between people from different nationalities, and this is what really distinguishes it. My students and I are very grateful for all efforts and support that everyone at the YMCA is doing for us, especially Monica, Yulia, and Dalia.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Gufran and I like the YMCA because it gives us a chance to study our mother language.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Yasmin. I'm very thankful to YMCA.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Sindis. We really appreciate your efforts with us. Thanks, YMCA.
Thank you, this video and the messages that we have received before from our dear friends, the four panelists, really take us to the next steps. Where are actually we as YMCA Europe, and what are the next steps that we are actually taking as European movement, as European platform, in order to make this work more relevant across the continent with an impact on the local level. Of course, as you know, we have a membership of around 30 national YMCAs in Europe, which are actually developing their own strategies and with a focus on their local level. They're also, and under the leadership of Emma Osmundsen, our president, we are developing what we call our new strategic direction across Europe. And this is presently under consultation among the movements in Europe, through our colleagues, the national general secretaries, and trying to fulfill a process that will hopefully end up in May with the adoption of a common journey or direction of travel, a common strategy. So this conference comes in the right moment. In fact, it's a series of conferences that we'll be having on different topics over the next months. And it will help us reflecting on focus areas that we really want to not only preserve, but improve and work on that innovative initiatives that Pedro was also mentioning as National General Secretary. So the first topic that Emma and the Executive Committee, together with the staff team, is looking at is the context in which our next strategic plan is taking place. And obviously the context now that we see differs quite a lot from the context we had just 1 year ago. Vice President Hines reminded us that our health, social, economic, and even political crisis is extremely unpredictable. And we, as YMCA Europe, we need to be aware of that as we move forward in designing collectively our journey. So this context is determining what we actually develop, of course, being loyal to our principles, our mission, and our Christian identity, and preserving the second element, which is the focus. The focus remains as youth empowerment, and we have heard also from Director General Vitorino how important is the youth involvement in projects, initiatives, and the civic engagement. The OIM has been very strong in advocating for this aspect. So if we add the body, mind, spirit aspect to this youth empowerment and the civic engagement pillar, we have the clear focus that YMCA Europe wants to achieve. So we spoke about the context, we're speaking about the focus and the direction of travel. Which direction shall we go to? Which is the goal and that North Star? Well, Carlos Sanve, the Secretary General of YMCA, reminded us a few minutes ago how clear our North Star shall be as global movement. Therefore, the European movement, YMCA Europe, is determined to align with that vision of World YMCA. Well, YMCA is rethinking now, reshaping the strategy, adapting it to the social, economic, health, environmental context, some of it caused by COVID-19. So YMCA Europe is also aligning with that vision, working alongside with that in that direction of travel, and this is very strongly emphasized by our executive committee. So in summary, which would be the priorities that we are looking at? The 4 priorities that our president Emma calls the 4 magical R's that we are looking at. It's mainly relevance, representation, relationship, and resilience. And we've heard a lot about this afternoon, and I will focus especially in relevance, which is the frame for the work that we are doing, that you are doing with refugees, with asylum seekers, with internally displaced persons, is the relevance of the work that is being done on the local level, on nationally, and even in terms of the regional approach. The relevance on the daily projects, on the impact that we have on the human being, on the individual that comes to our centers or that is looking for an answer. That relevance, this working group on refugees that Ed Egin is leading, is directly under this umbrella of relevance and impact, together with our peace work, together with our social relevance initiatives. In terms of representation, that was extremely important to have the presence of the Director General and the Vice President of the Commission, is the fact that we are not alone in this work and that we must be well represented in European institutions and even world institutions doing what we do to strengthen the movement and to deliver our project initiatives. And that's directly linked with relationships. And we have heard this before, you know, when Maya and Monica were speaking about creating those spaces, that approach that we have to our neighbors, our new neighbors in our cities, that sense of understanding, mutual understanding, despite of the barriers, despite of the different cultural differences and challenges, we still focus on relationship, and this will be an horizontal line for our next strategic plan when it's further discussed and hopefully adopted. And last but not least, the aspect of resilience. And resilience for us is not only what is happening now in Europe with the challenges that we all face that have been mentioned throughout the conference, but it's also the capacity of the YMCA as a movement at all levels to be here now and in the future. And setting the basis for that bright future is our responsibility, and we are able to inspire as YMCA Europe in that process also through our own initiatives and through upcoming conferences in which we'll be focusing on aspects like income generating streams, fundraising opportunities, etc. So I will not speak more about this. This is out there in your national YMCAs across Europe for consultation, but I would like to emphasize the alignment with World YMCA. And I would like to ask Rachel Rinaldo to actually share in a few minutes about that. And Carlos mentioned, and then add also our community of impact on refugees on the world level. So it's my pleasure to introduce Rachel Rinaldo, who is the Senior Director, New Americans Initiative and Global Partnerships of YMCA of Greater New York, and also leader of the World YMCA Community of Impact on Refugees and Migrants. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us this afternoon, this morning, for you actually, and for your sharing with us all the way from the United States.
Good morning. Thank you, Juan. And good morning, afternoon, and evening to all. It is an honor to be amongst and work alongside all of you. I must say it's been an inspiring morning to listen and learn to the incredible opportunities and impact that the YMCA Europe is creating for young people. I first want to thank Ed and Emma, Juan, and Carlos for inviting me to join you all here today. The World YMCA recognizes that the world is undergoing tremendous changes in every aspect of life, especially regarding migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced persons. Social and political conflict, food insecurity, natural disasters, climate change, environmental degradation, economic hardship, violence, and other adverse circumstances and structural issues have forced people to seek better living conditions elsewhere for themselves and their families. While there are many advantages and disadvantages that are a direct result of migration, impacting both the country or community the person left or the country or community the person migrated to, one thing is certain: there is great uncertainty. When individuals move from one community or one country to another, there are obstacles to be overcome, including unemployment, language barriers, cultural and religious barriers, racism and xenophobia, family separations, lack of opportunity, and many others. The community of impact on refugees and migrants, based on the 4 core values of the YMCA, caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, along with the principles of equity, diversity, inclusion, and social justice, will engage a diverse group of leaders from around the world and focus on strengthening our collective impact. We will accomplish this by mapping refugee and migrant projects across the movement, engage in peer-to-peer learning and sharing, use design thinking methods to improve and increase the impact of existing projects, address the identified gaps and challenges, and lastly, identify projects that can be scaled up and accelerated for greater collective impact. It is my hope that the community of impact can and will increase equitable access with comprehensive, timely, and quality services for all people, but especially the refugee and migrant population, without discrimination and with a person and community-centered approach. It is essential that we identify specific barriers to access and define time-tested and specific approaches and programs providing linguistic, intercultural, and financial support to improve access to critical services, especially as we seek to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Existing policy and processes in place should be strengthened to increase capacity, reach, and funding, especially in communities with a high influx of migrant populations. We will work to strengthen partnerships, networks, and frameworks to ensure that the determinants affecting refugees and migrants are addressed, including discriminatory impacts affecting all racial, ethnic, religious, and gendered communities. I believe it is important that we promote synergy and efficiency through external and intersecting partnerships that will support our coordination and collaboration, including such agencies as the UN, UN Women, the International Organization of Migration, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and others. Through the global coordination, communication, programming, and advocacy on behalf of refugees, migrants, and new immigrant populations across the globe, we can ensure the most vulnerable are safe, welcomed, and have a sense of belonging and are not left behind. Thank you all for your compassion and dedication in creating a better world for all. Back to you, Juan.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for this. This is very clear and inspiring words about the work that the community of impact is doing and will be facing into the future. You described it very well in a very eloquent way, and therefore, as we know, and you mentioned also, this is a global issue, and we do have a responsibility of tackling from the global level, and the area organizations as YMCA will be fully aligned with that vision that you and Carlos have described. And that connects also with the capacity of YMCA Europe to assist in something so pragmatic as funding applications, in working with partnerships, and the possibilities that we do have to share not only the best practices that have worked out well somewhere in Europe, but also to identify which are reliable partners and fruitful partners involved in this work from the private and the public sector. There will be a workshop later on in next session led by Eleni Ventroni, all the way from Brussels, on particular ways, particular funds that are out there open to all of you, and from European institutions and also some other international institutions that will be helpful. And there will be a presentation on concrete aspects that will be helpful to all of us. And the same thing as Ed always reminds in terms of the database that the working group on refugees has built and continues building on projects and the program opportunities. This is, at YMCA Europe's webpage, and you have here in the screen all the different projects on this field that exist presently in Europe, up, if I'm not mistaken, to over 50 projects across Europe with very concrete objectives, and also some assessments and the impact that each of these initiatives has on a daily basis. And we can just congratulate and thank all of you in the working group for putting this work together, and also the assistance of Marius, Eleni, and the rest of our staff team for really building this opportunity and this knowledge and this database. So I will finish now. I'm not sure yet if we have concrete questions at this point. I'm reminded that we do have now the opportunity of coming back to the, after the video, we have the opportunity of coming back to the rooms, to different rooms in which we'll have 2 parallel sessions running. But if there are any questions at this stage, I'll be very happy to answer. And so over to you, Ed, before the video.
Thank you, Juan. Yes, I have received 2 questions. The first one is from Silvia Perez Munoz from Mexico. How has the pandemic impacted the operations in your YMCA? And that question was asked when the panel discussion was going on. So if one of the members of the panel can react on that, if that is possible. Monica?
Yes, I think we had to react very quickly, so we are not losing the momentum. So I think our CEO was very proactive in establishing new services and providing us with tools to support our service users. So very quickly we started providing crisis response from our local YMCA. So that would include providing hot meals for the most vulnerable service users, delivering food parcels, delivering prescriptions, medicines to people. And obviously we all started working online, working from home, but actually it didn't have negative impact on the services my project is delivering, because it quickly turned out that we, without necessity to travel, we are able to provide services to many more people than in the past. Also we've found new ways how to help people. So instead of seeing the form we need to help them to fill, we would ask people to maybe send us pictures of the form and then maybe organize like a teleconference with them. And also majority of our group work is now being delivered online. So the likes of English classes, support groups, we are doing everything online. In the moments when the restrictions are not that tight, we are trying to meet people face to face, and even go with them for a walk, meet them outside. And also we, at the moment, for the most vulnerable ones, when their mental health is at risk or they are facing extreme financial hardship, we have an opportunity to meet them face to face.
Thank you. A second question came from Nicole Good Ferreira, if I pronounce it right. If I'm right, she's from Brazil, but at the moment living in Portugal. Her question is, do you think that a more active role from governments such as structural integration policies and programs, instead of simply providing financing, would make a great difference towards integration or providing more. From my knowledge, I know that many countries in Europe, governments have such a type of policy. I'm not talking about the effectiveness of the policy, but these policies are there. But maybe Juan, you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yes, Ed, and thank you for the question. Vice President Hines mentioned very clearly, very openly, how important it is to have a common policy in Europe. But also, he also mentioned some of the challenges that the European Union, especially the European Commission, is facing in terms of agreeing on a common policy. He was critical about that very openly, but he also mentioned the importance that we work as a civil society organization in hand, shoulder in shoulder with the public administration at all levels. And of course, I think one of the panelists, I think it was Maya, also mentioned advocacy, the advocacy work that we can do at all levels, from our YMCA perspectives as a civil society organization that we are in the end, on the local level, national level, and international level with our governments and supranational administrations. That's crucial, followed by practices, because we are not only referring to these policies from a theoretical point of view, but we have evidence that our work is solidly based on the ground. So we have a strong link on the ground, not from yesterday, a historical one, and we are continue doing that in contemporary times. So therefore, we have the capacity of also changing some of the policy, influencing that in a positive way.
Thank you, Juan. It's amazing, but we are only 3 minutes behind schedule, time-wise. So I propose that we continue with the video which was made in cooperation between Finland and YMCA Finland and YMCA the Gambia. And this is an excellent example when you speak about partnerships and cooperation between areas. Please, Marius.
Hello, my name is Awan Senghor, and I'm living in Sanjabasulejo. I'm a returnist from Libya. My aim was, when I got in Europe, I should buy a house for my family, because we are in hard places that, we cannot do something for each other. But when I got in Europe, I will buy houses, I'll give them money, and I will do what they want. That is my intention before I go to Barbie. But I started my journey from Senegal. I got Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. I have Agadez, I have Libya. And I was in Libya almost 3 to 4 years, from 2014 to 2018. And I've been in prison. I've been working with one friends that we are coming from works, and they shot out fire, and I lost one of my friends that I have been lost. We are coming from work, so then they shoot us and he lost his life. And I have been prison, from this prison to this prison, from Zabura to Zuara, Girigaras, Giriana, all those prisons I have been there. I even tried to cross the sea, but they have been catching me and take me to prison. They have beaten me every day to pay money. I don't have no money. They have been torturing me every day to call my mother or my father, let them send money for me. But I was told them that I don't have any Gambia. It's only me. So then in that I mingled with IOM. They have been returned me back to my country. And then when I come back to my country, I meet with my one friends. He told me about YMCA. He narrated something about YMCA, that today, Alhamdulillah, I was getting myself I'm working with my own skills, and they are the one who provide the skills for me. I'm able to sit in the public and talk to them about my story. They are the one who provide that for me. Today, I learn skills from tailoring at YMCA, and I become to be a peacemaker, peace ambassador. I get that certificate. Now I'm a volunteering from peacemakers at YMCA, and I do many things at YMCA. And when I ready from YMCA, so then I said thanks Finland and YMCA and YMCA in Gambia. Today they make me to motivate, they make me to educate and learn some skills. Last few years back, the time I was in and today is so different. And I never speak English, I never been to school, and I will try to explain everything that you guys will understand. And this is the thing that I have. Thank you very much.
You now see in your screen a window which says that Marius is inviting you to join funding opportunities. That is a breakout room. If you want to hear what Elenia has to say about funding opportunities for working with migrants and refugees, you should push the button join. If you ignore this, then you stay in the main room, and there we are going to share experiences from different YMCAs in Europe in their work with refugees and migrants. So take half a minute, take a minute to make your choice, and then we will continue. I would like to start now with a contribution from YMCA Ukraine. Viktor Serbilov, the National General Secretary, will speak while a video from YMCA Ukraine is running. And Viktor will speak about the internally displaced persons in Ukraine where the YMCA is working for. Viktor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Please go ahead. The video will be started by Marius.
Thank you, Ed. Just a few words about general situation with IDPs in Ukraine. While we are watching a video made by the volunteers of one of the local YMCAs in Boyarka, very close to Kyiv, where many IDPs found their new home. So here you can see a real IDP girl, internally displaced girl. So in Ukraine we have around 1,500,000 such IDPs. And for Ukraine with 40 million population, it's a big problem. For 7 years, we have a conflict in the east of Ukraine because of Russian aggression and the annexation of Crimea. And this problem continues. YMCA Ukraine has different programs focused on youth, children, on adaptation of them, integration in the society. And here you can see that, well, symbolic that this young person tried to find some warm, friendly hearts, and in the end, she will do this. Ukraine provides some psychosocial support programs for youth and children, some conflict resolution programs. We are providing trainings on peace building, different workshops, discussions, camps. We introduce such innovative way of communication this problem as the playback theater. This is a kind of interactive theater where people from the audience share their real life stories, and together with the audience and some facilitators, they try to solve their problems in different ways. There are also some other kinds of such art therapy, psychosocial support, like the program with the name Listening Hour. Again, for 1 hour, people share their stories, and together with facilitators, they analyze and find solutions. I could mention that very useful for us was and is the so-called Peacework Guidebook, created in the framework of the Roots for Reconciliation program of the YMCA Europe. There are a lot of very interesting, useful tools in this book, and everybody could use it, could find it on the YMCA Europe website. So please use and help the IDP and refugees. So this is in short what we are doing. In the end, I could say that each year we reach around 1,000 people, children, youth. We could do more, but the resources are limited. So we are doing what we can do. Thank you for attention. If any questions, please.
Thank you very much, Victor. Can you say 2 words about the video that we saw? It was symbolic about giving shelter, building a house made by volunteers. Can you say a few words?
Yes, it is a symbolic story that a young person is looking for a new home, and this plastic form in her hands symbolize that with support of her peers, in this case YMCA volunteers, they managed to build a new house for this girl. In reality, so many young people were adopted, found the new homes in the new regions all around Ukraine. As I mentioned, 1,500,000 people got into such situation. So now they are adapting, and YMCA helps with this.
Thank you so much, Victor, and much success and good continuation with the good work you are doing. I know the circumstances are difficult, but keep on going.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Maya Hallman, are you still here from YMCA Nuremberg in Germany?
Yes.
Okay, I'm lucky. You referred in your panel intervention about some work that you do in Nuremberg, and that you have a short video about that. Marius can play the video. Do you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. Do you want me to say something before or after?
No, now, at the same time.
Okay. I thought there was the background music. So as you can see in the video, we have this program in the YMCA Nuremberg where we, if there's no pandemic times, we meet every Wednesday with a group of young people, usually men and young women from Syria or from Iran or Ethiopia. And in a small group, together with our local volunteers, we prepare a meal, and afterwards we have a big meeting with about 20, 30, 40, or even 60 people, where we eat together this warm lunch. And it is very important to us that participants from other countries can actually share what they can do, their cooking skills, but just the idea is that they become volunteers as well. So we take a lot of time to eat together. There's Christine Becker on screen because she's been a participant as well. And we believe that during eating together and sitting around a table, there's where the magic happens, where we forget about where we come from, or where we can just talk and create this space where people can just sit together and have a good time. So yes, the video is over, and I hope you got a short insight into that.
Okay,
so, of course,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Maya. Can you say, maybe I missed it, how many people with refugee and migrant background are you serving in Nuremberg? Is there an average?
So it depends. Like in the accommodation where I work, we serve about up to 180, 190 people. And of course, we invite them to our programs. But then in the YMCA program, there's other people who don't necessarily live in the accommodation from the government where we work, but who heard about our programs. There is a language school in the YMCA building. So we invite these people with refugee background or migrant background into this program. And it really depends on every week how many people come. Sometimes we have to keep track and make statistics, so we count them. But also I try sometimes to just forget about numbers, because to be honest, all the people, they have a number from the government, a number in every office. So yes, that's why I don't keep track with the numbers so much. But yes, so in this group, sometimes there's 20, 30, and sometimes there's even 60 people who come every week, but usually it's around 30 or 40. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic right now, we're not allowed to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I got a signal that Christine is back. Christine, you mentioned to me that you would like to say something about the YMCA work in Esslingen. Esslingen is near Stuttgart, if I'm right. And you have a small video too, please.
So, unfortunately, the sound of the video was a little bit bad. Here you see Theodora. She's from Nigeria. She came to Germany because of persecution in Nigeria. I don't know if you've heard it. Christians are hardly persecuted. There was an attack just this week on a school in Nigeria, and she told us about what she has experienced. She showed us now where Nigeria is in Africa, basically in the middle, and she said that she came to Germany, and she's very glad that we received her in our housing programs. We have a program called the Hoffnung Haus, so House of Hope. What we do is that we live together, Germans and refugees, and it's some kind of integrational project. So we just want to be neighbors, share a life, share our stories, be friends, and just learn to live together. So we support our international neighbors whenever they have some needs, like filling forms or whatever. But also we just share our time. We invite each other for tea or so basically everyone got his apartment in our housing programs, and the idea is that we learn from each other. It's not just the refugees that are learning from us, but it's also us who learn a lot from them, because they come with so much experience, and they bring another culture, which for us is of huge value. At least I am learning a lot from them. And yeah, what Theodora told us is that she as well is thankful for to live in our housing programs, and that what she experienced is that people receive her no matter what has happened, no matter her story, her background, and that she's glad to have some accommodation which wouldn't be possible in Nigeria, for example. She said that in her country it wouldn't be able that, or she wouldn't be able to go to a place and be received with open arms. So she said what she experienced here is something that she couldn't have imagined in Nigeria, and which she is very thankful for.
Thank you, Christina. I have heard the version of the video with sound, and it was really not understandable. So I'm very happy that you told her story. You live together with some people, young people with a refugee and migrant background. Are they all from Africa? Where do they come from?
They come from different countries. Most of them come from African countries. There are also some from Arabic or Persian countries. So it's a huge mixture from all over the world. Yeah.
Are there challenges because of that?
Yeah, there definitely are. So sometimes there are, there are difficulties within the apartments. So there are, most of the apartments are depending on the nation. So there's a Gambian apartment, there's a Eritrean apartment, but in some cases it just doesn't work. And of course there are difficulties, but what we do is that we try to learn with our differences, with our to live with our differences, our diversity, and to accept the other one just the way he is, to learn, to realize that I may not understand everything the other one does or has in his culture, but to accept it and to learn to live together.
And how is your project, your house, the housing, how is it funded?
So there's a foundation called Hoffnungsträgerstiftung, so Foundation of Hope, basically. Mm-hmm. That's where the house got its name from. That's they've got a concept of these of these housing programs, and here in Esslingen they work in cooperation with the YMCA. In other towns they work in cooperation with other organizations, and because of them we are able to finance those housing programs.
Okay, very good. So in fact privately funded and not from government so much supported. Yeah, very good. Thank you for all your efforts, including the difficulties with the video. It is solved very well in this way, Christine. Thank you. Annika, are you happy to say a few words?
I think it's not that much work that I do, because it's just like 1 year that I work. So it's like a pandemic circumstances, but I saw like Manfred Wille, who raised his hand. Maybe he will talk.
Again?
I thought to see Manfred Wille raising his hand. Maybe he will talk.
Oh, I didn't see him. Manfred, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah.
I can't hear you. Can you speak closer to the microphone?
Okay. You see, we have, I can't go to the barber shop right now. In our local YMCA, we do integration through sports. In volleyball and in football, soccer and table tennis, and we go to tournaments, we travel with refugees. But important for us is that we do not build a group just for newcomers. We bring Germans together with newcomers. We bring newcomers with foreigners together. We try to mix male and female, young and old, and that is very important for us, that they understand each other. And sports is a good tool to bring people together. Not always, but it's very often a good tool. And since, yes, we are doing this, and we are very thankful that we are supported by our local town, by the Lower Saxony Sports Organization. Yes, that was my input. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Did I see Maya?
I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but
Okay.
I thought it was a great thing about the sports to be a first contact with the YMCA and yes, bring people together there. So thank you, Manfred.
Are there any other contributions? Yes.
I don't know. I was going to just ask a more general question, I suppose, from YMCA Europe's perspective. We very much want to further the work of this particular refugee and migrant work group. Has anyone got any suggestions or comments in terms of what you feel YMCA or what you think YMCA Europe could be doing more of or assisting with in terms of this key topic area?
Who wants to speak?
I know everyone's shy. Maya.
Yes, thank you. So there was one thought I was having. I think I already told that to Juan, but I think something that would be good would maybe be to stay more connected. I couldn't tell in which way so far, but we often work with families who in their asylum process have a Dublin case where they have to travel back to the first country where they applied for asylum. So they would have to go back to France or Greece or Italy. And it is very difficult for us to say goodbye and not know where they will end up. So I think it will be great for me, or it's something that I will try to do more, to try and get into touch and see if there is a local YMCA there where the families are going. So I think this is a great opportunity that I didn't think of before.
I think that's a really good suggestion, because I think, you know, kind of some of my opening words was about how the whole history of the YMCA movement and how we've been so effective and consistent over the last 177 years. And so much as that has been as a consequence of that local connections, then more regional connections, national connections, and indeed international connections. So I think it's well within our capabilities, particularly now that we've got social media, computers, digitalization. So it would be really good for us to explore how we can be better connected and how we can be more effective. I'd like to also throw out another question, Ed, if I've got time.
Sure, we have a few minutes left.
Yeah, so I was also wondering, given that we operate within a kind of global context, and a lot of what we've talked about today and the examples of work that we are seeing, of which is absolutely inspirational, is there a place for the YMCA in terms of assisting people kind of in their original home countries to almost to avoid the displacement in the first place? Or often, you know, some people do get sent back to their destiny, you know, where they originally destined from.
I would be interested just to get people's comments or views or opinions in terms of, what role could we play more as a global family to be perhaps an instigator of sort of the mitigation of displacement in the first place, or what can we do to assist people who have to return?
Anyone who wants to reflect on that?
May I say something?
Who is speaking?
It's me, Christine.
Yeah.
I was very inspired by the video we've seen from YMCA Finland and Gambia, because I think that's a case where this international interaction works quite well, and I guess it's something important that we have to learn to do more, to just stay in contact with the people's home countries and the YMCAs in their home countries. For example, we in our Hoffnungshäuser, in our houses, we have a lot of people from Gambia, and I really hope that they won't have to go back, but there are often cases here in Germany where people from Gambia are sent back. So yeah, it would be so important if that might happen, that we have a contact, and that we can contact YMCA Gambia, and that those people who go back know that there is a place where they can go to, because often those cultures are cultures of shame. If those people come back, they won't be received by their own families.
May I interrupt you? I do not want to be impolite, but Kaisa Stromberg from Finland, who is involved in that project with Gambia, raised her hand to say a few words on that, and we only have 3 minutes to go in this session, and then it will automatically be cut. So please, Kaisa.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just a second. I'm going to open my camera. Thank you. Yeah, I thought that I can maybe say something here, since I work for YMCA Finland and I coordinate this project in Gambia. And in addition to promoting like youth employment and entrepreneurship and training the youth, the returnees, one of the main things in the project is to openly talk about the stories of the young people who leave their home country, who leave Gambia. And because there's maybe the image that a lot of young people have is very romanticized, kind of. So they think that Europe is like, you get a good, perfect life there and it's going to be nice and easy. But in reality, it's very different. So talking about these stories openly and realistically, and then this is kind of a way of so how do you say this? Sorry, I haven't prepared to talk about this, but yeah, so it's one way to make sure that the young people don't leave, so that they would want to stay. So promoting that they find education and work in their own country and the opportunities in there, and they wouldn't have to leave the Gambia.
Your colleague, Jyrki, if I pronounce it correctly, also sends a signal that YMCA Finland is doing also a common project in Lebanon, together with the Lebanese YMCA. Tony Almir from YMCA Lebanon should be in this meeting. But is that of the same kind, or is that of a different kind of project?
This is, yeah, that's it's a little bit different. It's working with the Lebanese and Syrian people, because there's a lot of refugees coming from the Syria. So there they are kind of like trying to increase understanding between the different communities and, dialogue. Also, it's also about youth employment and promoting youth employment and giving the young people training and allowing them to maybe set up a business or get employment. And so it's very similar, but in another context.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, hello and greetings from Finland. I'm not shy, but I was looking when you were shouting some presentations or speeches from the local YMCA, and I was searching from the laptop presentation of English what we are doing, but we are running also local YMCA in Helsinki. We are running also training programs for intercultural training and different kind of trainings and activities for youth and sports and different kind of activities. But now probably the time is running out, so I can't show that presentation, but maybe in the next meeting, or I can share what we are doing in some other meeting.
I'm very happy to do so. This will certainly not be the last opportunity to share information. I'm trying to get in contact with Marius because he signaled that the session should be over now, but I'm not sure if the others are back in the room.
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yes.
Okay, so then I want to thank all of the ones who shared information in this working session. There is more to tell. Unfortunately, the connection with Toulouse did not work well, but we also will come back to Maria Stel in a later phase. So sorry for that, Maria Stel. I see you winking now, and unfortunately it didn't happen. Mario, start the video, and after that, the closure of the conference will be done by Emma. The video is about the war in Karabakh last September.
As a matter of fact, the conflict-prone and war-torn region of Karabakh is a land with beautiful nature, outstanding cultural heritage and unique identity traditions, tasty food and rich mineral and water resources. For thousands of years we Armenians have been living there and have been always calling this piece of our homeland Artsakh. On September 27, 2020, during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic, Azerbaijan started another offensive of unmatched magnitude and atrocity. This war turned out to be an embarrassing failure of the humanitarian values and universal law, with all the appeals of responsible international institutions such as the UN Security Council or the OSCE remaining as voices crying out in the wilderness. And the recent war lasted for the entire 44 days, with the world just watching it, maybe with horror, maybe. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan was using forbidden weapons such as cluster rockets and chemical bombs, also targeting civilians. The cities and villages were indiscriminately bombed, pushing the humans of Artsakh into basements or taking refuge. To survive, women and children were mostly evacuated to Armenia, while men remained in barricades defending their homes. All Armenia and Armenians got mobilized in providing relief assistance to those in need. The YMCAs in Armenia were at the forefront of that civic movement. The local YMCAs of Spitak and Vanadzor sheltered 70 people in their facilities for months, at the same time providing a variety of regular day care assistance to other 200 people. They managed to raise the resources predominantly from their local communities and governments and of course from friends all over the world. Special thanks goes to YMCA Zurich for the immediate and generous response to this humanitarian crisis. Thanks to them, YMCA Spitak was able to offer a quality refugee relief program to families from Artsakh, including employing some of them in their pandemic response projects, such as cooking for the COVID-19 patients in the local hospital. Young men of Artsakh, amongst them the YMCA members, regardless of their will, could not but be part of this war, and many of them were directly affected by it. Boys who had been with us throughout the last 3 years in the Roots Peace summer camps, dancing, singing, learning about conflict transformation. But now they are not with us anymore in this world, because peace didn't visit Artsakh, yet the war did. Harit is one of those, who has been an active member of YMCA Artsakh. Together with his wife, he was a part of the YMCA Artsakh summer camp, making it incredible with his input in intellectual games and activities. Now Harit is gone, leaving after him only beautiful memories for his wife, little daughter and us. Over 6,000 Armenian soldiers, many of them 18 to 20-year-old boys, fell victim to this war. Many more got injured by it, and everyone was traumatized. As a result of the war, Azerbaijan captured most of Artsak's territory, with nearly 1,500 Armenian historical heritage sites. Hundreds of towns and villages were ethnically cleansed, making more than 50,000 people refugees. And again, many YMCA members and their families amongst them. One of those young humans is Tama, who taught dance to everyone during the YMCA summer camps. She is a historian by profession, but also a national dance teacher. In the evenings of the camps, she invited everyone to dance, being a connector between people and art. She lived in the village of Hovtashan, which is already under Azerbaijani control. She and her family are homeless and are in Armenian villages now, without plans for tomorrow. So is Serbuhi, from Hadrat region. Serbuhi is an actress and had her input during the theatre activities during the YMCA camps. She is a very special girl with positive energy and enthusiasm. Serbuhi is not only homeless but much more. In this war she lost her love, her boyfriend Haik. She lost contact with him after some weeks of the war and hoped for the best. She believed that he was alive and he would come back to her, but he didn't. Nearly 2 months later after the war his body was found. This is how the war changes your life. But we, the young people of Artsak, the YMCA members, remain standing strong on the peace side of the front line. As a response to the ongoing humanitarian crisis, YMCA Europe, within its Roots for Peace projects, has committed support to a series of trauma healing projects to be implemented by YMCA Artsak for war-affected young people and their communities. To this end, with special backing from the World Alliance of YMCA, an online fundraiser is launched to support the co-funding of this initiative.
We young people of Artsakh, YMCA member, thank all those who have joined or will join this fundraiser.
Your contribution means a lot for us, especially as a sign of hope and solidarity.
During these difficult days for us, for Artsakh people, for youngsters especially, these kind of signs are very important for us. And we all hope that this summer, the Roots Peace Summer Camp will bring us all together to Badara village as always.
Emma, please.
It's my honour now to take the opportunity to close our conference today. I would like to just leave you with some reflections on the challenges confronting us and the work that we do as a YMCA family to help the displaced. And the female British crime writer P.D. James writes, "Generosity is a virtue for individuals, not governments. When governments are generous, it is with other people's money, other people's safety, other people's future." And in P.D. James's dystopian novel, Children of Men, she describes a future world in which a sterile human race has descended into anarchy. A deluge of asylum seekers desperately attempts to penetrate a few remaining stable states, which in an effort not to be overrun have become heavily militarized to the point of inhumanity. Electrified fences, menacing concrete watchtowers manned by armed guards, barbed wire holding pens and vicious prison guards ring the British Isles in order to preserve the last remaining vestiges of civilization and humanity by using means that are neither civilized nor humane. Now, this book, which was a shocking read when it was first published, was later turned into a powerful film. And it resonates even further these days, as this piece of fiction is fact, already a reality of modern day immigration control in various parts of the globe. And as Mr. Shanaz has shared with us at the start of this conference, European states are struggling to find consensus on a proactive approach to managing the influx of migrants. And over the course of Europe's migration crisis, there's a growing sense of urgency and panic, and this is leading to policies that range from the cynical to the unconscionable. Many of us have probably become too immune to the stock pictures of anonymous families huddled on beaches or at borders and railway stations. sleeping rough on our streets and walking for days on end to find the smallest bit of sanctuary. And despite the assurances of the UN Refugee Convention and other human rights legislation, we're seeing a worrying trend towards the criminalisation of migration and of the migrant themselves. And the popular rhetoric around migration is becoming worrying, nationalistic and intolerant. We're seeing far-right parties gaining traction across the continent, and attacks against migrants as well as charities providing services to them are becoming more common. And after a protracted period of economic downturn, and notwithstanding the current global pandemic we're all suffering from, many European countries are not only suffering from high levels of unemployment and widespread cuts to government budgets, but also about the level of social support that we're able to provide. We're seeing attitudes among politicians that initially welcome refugees turning sour as legitimate but exaggerated fears of terrorism have trumped Europe's humanitarian impulse and commitment to human rights norms. Tension over migration has caused some EU member states to reconsider some of the core tenets of integration. And whilst at no time in history has so many people attempted to cross international borders without authorization, the YMCA remains resolute in its sacrificial service to refugees, migrants, and displaced people. And as Carlos Sanvi reminded us, the YMCA are resolute in their commitment to caring for migrants and refugees across the globe. Now, this afternoon, we've had the pleasure to hear the first-hand work of our movement that's undertaking projects across Europe to serve the needs of refugees, migrants, and displaced people, living out the values of the founders of our movement in providing aid to our neighbours, as we've done so over the last 177 years. There is, however, unfortunately, much more work to be done to create even greater impact for those that need us. Now, at YMCA Europe, we are currently consulting on our 2021 strategy, identifying our key priorities for the next 4 years. And our commitment to the refugee working group remains, and I would like to think that we will gain the support of our members to continue to prioritise this important area of work. Our database of YMCA refugee projects in Europe is live and open for updating, and is offered to include all projects also outside of Europe. So if you are involved with any projects that have not yet been captured, please do get in touch, and so your projects can be included. YMCA Europe is, of course, part of a much bigger movement, and I confirm to you today that we'll be strongly cooperating with the newly started Community of Impact for Migrants and Refugees of the World Alliance. And just before I conclude this afternoon in prayer, I would like to express my sincere thanks to all our presenters today. Also to Ed Egging and the YMCA Refugee Working Group for organising today's programme, and Juan and the YMCA Europe staff team for coordinating today's conference, and special thanks to Marius Pope for all the technical assistance you've provided us. Finally, can I say a great big thank you to all of you, our attendees, for joining us, participating, and involving yourselves in the conference this afternoon. I hope you have found it insightful, informative, and inspirational. I would like now just to close this conference with the words from the New Testament in Matthew chapter 25 in verse 35. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. May we have the continued generosity of spirit to put the needs of our brother and sister refugees and migrants at the forefront of our YMCA programs, to build bridges and not walls, to share our lives, perhaps over a coffee with others, to include so people feel included, to remember that we are all the sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters of migrants. And may God bless you all, the work of the YMCA, of every one of our displaced brothers and sisters across Europe and beyond. God bless, amen, and safe travels. Thank you.